Hey everybody, I want to show you today how I made this cool little palm-sized nativity puzzle based on an old woodcut puzzle that my grandfather made and that I had around my house growing up, but I made it in a program called Vectary. So this is Vectary. It's a web app, and yes, if you don't know my opinion on web apps, boop. But this does have some very cool features, and I really like the workflow that it does. Now, when you go onto Vectary.com and you start your account and start it up, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to drop you into some tutorials. And I love the tutorials that they made. They were perfect. 5 minutes with their tutorials, and I got the idea of Vectary. And after an hour, I felt confident enough using their tools that I could really experiment with it. How to do this? Well, I started thinking about maybe I would do it freehand in Vectary. They've got some drawing tools that you can use to draw lines. Vectary at this time doesn't have the ability to bring in a picture and then scale it on there and line it up and stuff like that. So not having that ability, I don't know, I didn't want to do that, but they do have the ability to import an SVG object. So this project actually begins in Inkscape. So here is Inkscape. And I don't know if you're familiar with Inkscape. Inkscape is a vector editing tool, very similar to Adobe Illustrator, but much, well, freer for sure. It costs no money. So we're going to use this because I am cheap. And the way that I start this project is I pull up a pen tool and I just kind of start tracing the object. And where needs be, I will bevel edges and things like that. So I'm going to start by just tracing the outside here. Excellent. And I can come over here to the fills and stroke and make sure that the stroke is a little bit thicker. I don't want it to be too thick, but I want it to be thick enough that I can work with it. So maybe I'll crank it up to 5. Maybe I'll crank it up to 10. That's maybe too much, but we'll go with it for now. So now the line is in there. Okay. And in the end, I'm going to use a fill on this one and fill it all in, but I'm not going to do that just yet because I still want to be able to cut the lines. I think I'll come in and maybe start with this. Oh, I remember how I did the corners. I did it like this. I started before the corner, and then I clicked after the corner, and I held it and dragged it to turn it into a edge like that. So I will do that, bring it up here and round it, bring it over here, and we'll finish that line right there and make it 10 as well. And I just went around doing all like this. I took the lines, I drew them and then thickened them a little bit. And then I'm not going to go ahead and do all of this. Instead, what I'm going to do is show you how I finished this thing off. So I grabbed this big one on the background. I gave it a color. I grabbed these lines here. Now, right now they're lines, which means that they have a line and a thickness, but that thickness is just kind of a virtual idea. I need to go to the object or path, take the stroke and turn it into a path. And now, if you go in, you'll see that it's a shape, and both sides of the shape are defined, and that's very good because we need to take this shape and the shape in the background and Boolean subtract them from each other. So run a difference on them. That didn't work. That probably didn't work because I first should take these two and union them together. So let's union them. And now if we look at their path, they have just this connection between them. They're not separate. And now I can grab this one and path difference them. Which if I turn off the stroke, you can see now they're separate objects. So it breaks them all into separate objects that lines up with the way that it's going to be done. And again, I've already done all of this. I'm not going to do it. It's a long and drawn out process. But once this was all done, the next thing I did was I brought it back into Vectary. So back into Vectary we go. We're going to import my SVG object, which fortunately I have already got right here. So I'll grab the SVG, drop it in. And there it is. It already took the liberty of extruding them out for me. In this one, I had already drawn the edges as well. However, there's a bit of a problem. They're all really, really close to each other. And what I can do is I can select one of these faces, go to the selections jog. I can expand my selection, grow it, and just crank it up until it selects that entire object. Control X to cut it out. Oh, over here, Control X to cut it out. Ooh, that's weird that it didn't grab that one. Never mind. And then I'll come over here, create a new layer, and I'll Control V, paste that back in there. And so now this guy here is on his own layer, and I can edit him separately and do whatever I want with him. That works. That's one way of doing it. However, I decided instead that I would go back to the SVG and that I would separate them out. There we go. So now I've taken all these objects and I've separated it. It's a little bit small. I'm going to have to scale them up, and they're a little bit thick. I'm going to have to thin them out too. But again, I'm going to just grab, so I'm going to box select, and I think I'm going to grab, who do I want to start working with? Who do I want to demo you guys with? Let's grab this wise man right here. Now, I'm grabbing the whole plane, so I'm going to box select around here. Now, I will point out that the box select tool selects the points behind as well, so that's super cool. It's bugging me that this isn't scaled up properly, so I'm going to just, scale it up right now. Oh, there was a little error here. Those lines were supposed to go to the sheep's feet, which I had to correct later, but we'll correct that later. It's not a big deal. We don't make mistakes, just happy little undos. Okay, let's select this wise man. Let's cut him out of the scene. Let's put him, yeah, I like that. Let's put him on his own layer. And let's hide the other layer. Now, I will say that this wise man, as he is not bad. But, and I'm going to change this layer to be wise man 1. But I want to make him just a little bit different for our nativity. So I'm going to grab all the points. I'm going to rotate him. I want him to stand up. And I want to rotate him by exactly 90 degrees so he stands properly. And I'm going to eyeball as good as I can, putting him on the ground. Yeah, there we go. Okay. There we go. Let's center the view on him. I don't like this mess of geometry on the front. I understand why it's there, but I don't like it. I wish that it were n-gone, so I'm going to make them n-gone. So I'm going to box select. Oops. Oh, sorry, wrong tool. Marquee select, M. These points, and then I'm going to delete them. Have you noticed how right over here, every time I use a tool, even if I use the keyboard, it tells you what key I hit. A lot of people complain in my tutorials and videos and stuff that there's no anything explaining what tool I'm using, but there it is. They put that tool right into Vectary, which I absolutely love. All right, so now I've got these selected. I'm going to go to face select mode, and I'm going to deselect these lines on the bottom. I'll use the marquee minus subtract tool, which you can get to just by hitting marquee twice. And there we go. Now those points are deselected, and none of the other points. Good, time to bevel. I'm going to grab this edge. I'm going to bevel it, and I'm actually just going to give it like a 1 millimeter bevel, but I want to have more edges to it, so I want more segments to my bevel. Oh, come on. Yeah, 1, 2. We'll do 2. And how rounded do we want it? That's good. That's good. Maybe my offset could be a bit less, though. Maybe I should drop my offset to 0.74. Yeah, I just wanted like the effect of having a slightly sanded edge. Okay, there we go. We've got our wise men kind of rounded like there. Now, I want to do a couple of things. In the original puzzle, you just kind of drilled eyes in it. It was very abstract. we're going to do that here today. I'm going to throw in fact, I have to create a new layer for this though. So I'm going to add an empty layer, and this is wise man 1, the negative part, the things that I'm going to be subtracting out. Draw a quick cylinder. Okay, and now I'm going to rotate him 90 degrees. I'm going to move him in 2 axes until he's at the eyeball. I'm going to move him over so that he's where I want him. And then I'm going to Control-C, Control-V him and create a duplicate of it, which goes right here. So now with the eye in place, I need to do a Boolean on these 2 layers. Now, Boolean is a plugin, and I love the plugins here. So I just click Add a Plugin. And look at all these really cool plugins that they've got. They've got some new primitives that we can add. They have a wheel generator that is really cool. Cage Edit, which allows you to make a shape and move things around. But it even has the ability to upload directly to my Mini Factory. Kind of. They're still working on it, but it's there and it's cool and I love it. But I'm using the Boolean, so we're going to add a Boolean to this scene. And I'm going to name this Boolean. Everything's just so intuitive. Double click on the word, you can name it. Wise man 1 Boolean. Okay. And I'm going to take the wise man. I'm going to add the wise man neg, and it's going to be a Boolean to it. Run the Boolean. And boom. Now notice that it automatically hid the layers that were included in the Boolean. This that we're seeing here is the result of the Boolean. I can hide it and we don't see it, and I can unhide the layers to go back to looking at them, or I can unhide this. However, this object isn't really here yet. In order to get it to be in the scene for real, I have to say bake it. And once I bake it, there it goes. It's layer 2 baked, so we can call wise man 1 final. And now we've got this object that we can export, or we can even continue to edit it at this point now that we've baked it in. I'm going to go back to the source Pocket Nativity that has everything, and we're going to work on the manger, or the shed. What was it called? Anyways, now you will notice that when I went to top view, it kind of snapped into an orthographic view. If I move off of it, now it's doing a perspective view. But if I go to the top, it locks it into place and does a orthographic view, which is super cool to me how they just intuitively make that happen. Let's grab all of these points here. Let's cut them out. Let's create a new layer. What is this thing called? I don't remember, because the manger was where the baby's sleeping, right? I can't even remember. We're just gonna call it shed. I feel so ashamed. I should know what this is. Nevertheless, here we are. Let's hide the other layer, so I only have this one to work on, and let's hide the wise man Boolean. I don't need to worry about that for now. And let's hide the wise man final. Okay, I need to, first of all, let's select just this little mistake right here and delete it. Let's select all the points on the top, the faces on the top here, and delete them. And I'm going to do the same to the bottom as well. I love that snap. But I am going to select all of the points. So there we go. I've selected the entire bottom here, and I'm going to cap that one. But I'm not going to cap the top. Okay, so at this point, I've made a bowl shape, but it's a bowl shape with no actual thickness to it. So if you know anything about 3D printing and design, this won't print. It has no volume. We need to make a volume. So in order to do that, I'm going to Control-A to select everything. And then I'm going to use that extrude tool. Now, what's going to happen when we're working in 3 dimensions? Let's find out. Extrude out 2 millimeters. And boom, it went out in all directions. Now, there's a little bit of problem here on the side. I have a little jiggy jog that happened right here on the side that I don't like. So I'm going to have to edit that out. I will do that at another time. But you know what? I actually don't want my extrude to be 2 millimeters. I want this extrude to be a little bit more than that. Let's go out Yeah, maybe 8. We want a nice thick thing around the outside of it here. So there we go. Again, I'll have to fix this thing. Now, it's interesting to me that with that there, it caused this to kind of, here, let's look at it from the side. Yeah, like that. Not so good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to deselect everything. I'm going to marquee select the faces on the bottom here. And I'm going to do something that is really cool, and I love it when a program allows me to do this. I'm going to scale it just in the Z to a 0 so it flattens the bottom. Love it when you let me do that. Obviously, this one needs some work. And I have to do some more work because I need to take the bottom and flatten it out, take these corners and collapse them into each other. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to grab just this line, and then I'm going to use the, just this line here, please, thank you. And then I'm going to use this collapse tool, which is kind of like a merge everything to center. So be careful what you have selected because it'll merge it in 3 dimensions if you're not careful. I'm going to grab this edge and this edge and everything in between, and I'm going to collapse them. I'll just marquee select all these points, and I will really quickly make sure I didn't accidentally marquee select any points that I didn't want. Looks good to me. Collapse them down. Now that that's done, I will select this edge, and this edge. Scale them in just the Y so that they are all lined up with each other. Move them a little bit in the Y. And then I will have to, in the top view, line them up so the edges aren't wonky. Like that. And again, I'll do this a little bit more off camera, but just kind of fiddling with the points and making this the shape that I want. And because I started with the SVG and scaled them all together, I know that all of these parts will fit inside here the way they intended. So let's go ahead and jump to the finished product here. So here is the finished model, and you can see that with the shepherd I added a little crook so that we could tell that he's a shepherd. With the sheep I added little fluffies in them to make them look like sheep, and added horns to these 2 that nest together. There's Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus, the 3 wise men with their little stuff, and the camels and the cows. And then for the coup de grace, I added an angel that I also drew in SVG in Inkscape. Now, one thing that I really, really love about Vectary is that, one, it's so functional the way that it is. It's like I said, it's like they took the edit mode from Blender, but gave it a great user interface, so it's super easy to use. But there are some things that Vectary doesn't do very well. For instance, it was difficult to tell how big my object was. Yeah, I could look at the grid and I could say, all right, the grid's this big, therefore these things must be that big. But it would be nice if I could click on an object and get some more details with them. Also, I found that I was organizing everything in layers, and for this project I had a lot of layers. In my mind, those aren't layers, those are just objects, and it would make sense to call them objects so that we work with it that way. But I got to the point where my layers list was so big that it was starting to interfere with my Boolean add-ons from above. And so I had to keep on collapsing that one and bringing that one up. I feel like maybe a scrollable list there would be something a little bit better. Maybe, I don't know. But it's super functional as it is, so while I can nitpick it all day long, that's actually a really good thing. Now, it is a web app, so hey, Vectary guys, if you could give me a download that I can keep in case of the worst, I would be very grateful. But as it is, it's a really good program, and I recommend you check it out. This is actually my entry into their Christmas contest. And hey, if I'm lucky, maybe I'll have an SLA printer to talk about in 2018 going forward. But either way, it was a fun project to do, and I really am happy with this Pocket Nativity. You can download this Pocket Nativity, print it out, and try it out yourself right now. It's available on My Mini Factory. And I want to thank very much you for watching to this point. I want to thank my supporters, and I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and say, as always, safety first. See you next time.
Do you want to know more about 3D printing but don't know where to start? Or did you buy a 3D printer but you need some help getting it going? Don't panic. The Beginner's Guide to the 3D Printing Galaxy is here, now, for you. Buy it on Amazon.